I have to say, this is kind of what you miss when you spend 2 years of your life doing Zoom webinars. I think I'm in an archway, I see political colleagues, I see an incredible group of thought leaders and CEOs over here, and lots of businesses and friends as well. My name is Aidan Healy. I'm the CEO of an organization called Lexic, and I'm also the campaign director for Neurodiversity Celebration Week, which takes place this week. And let me, I think a lot of these things start with a story, and let me very briefly tell you mine, which is I think I grew up with a disabled mother, a mother who has a physical impairment. So ever since I was a child, the world of disability and exclusion and impairment was very real for me. But what I didn't grow up with, and I'm sure most of you haven't grown up with, is that word neurodiversity. You've probably grown up with other words: disorder, deficit, stigma, shame. And as Matt said, the words you use when you feel shame isn't learning difference or learning disability, is I feel stupid. I feel like I don't belong. I feel like I'm trying so hard, and this seems to be working for the majority. I think it's really interesting. There's like a photo of all white men behind me here, because there's nothing like the majority, right? To sometimes feel like the minority isn't quite fitting in. So for me, neurodiversity isn't about just labels like dyslexia and autism and ADHD. It's about thinking differently. It's about how our brains are wired differently. And I think there's no team or no workplace that can't benefit from different thinking. As Dan said, this is 13 million, maybe more, maybe less people in the UK, and billions of people worldwide. And I think if we look at workplace strategies, if we look at corporate strategies, what I see is pretty much 100% of workplaces are now telling me they're committed to D&I. But when I look at neurological differences, when I look at neurodiversity, so often I open up your strategies and I don't see that mentioned. And my challenge to you today is you can't be inclusive of society if you exclude the needs of 15 to 20% of the population. And that is an intersectional need. They can be gay, they can be women, they can be different races, they can be ethnicities. We're not in competition with other parts of the D&I movement. And so I guess my talk today was about the value of neurodiversity and why senior leaders should care. And I think it's worth reflecting on, well, why is this not on the agenda? Why have organizations like us in Lexic and other organizations been pushing this for so long, sometimes with feeling limited change? And I think there's a few reasons. Number one is the vision and how we have the context of the conversation. Most of you grew up with words like dyslexia and autism and ADHD, probably with a mixture of a charity model of poor them, that must be very difficult, maybe a medical model of how can we help you or support you or send you to occupational health. More recently, a legal model, which is, okay, you have rights under the Equality Act, we better ensure you're included. And more recently, maybe a social model, which says actually, you're not impaired by your differences, you're paired by the environment around you. And I think in that, we're actually missing a very important conversation, which is the value conversation. And as other people have said, this 15 to 20% of the population is about talent attraction and retention. It's about brand development. It's about performance. It's about creativity. It's about innovation. And that 15 to 20% of the population has a very significant amount of disposable income. So if you're a business and you appeal to them, not only do you benefit from your employees, you benefit from your customers as well. So I think we've got to reframe the conversation we've been having to a value conversation. Otherwise, how can we expect senior leaders with so much on their desk to give time and their resources and their energy to this? Number two, I think what a lot of organizations feel is this is overwhelming. This is too complicated. We don't know what to say or what to do. And you're right, neurological differences are complicated. People are complicated. But I think what's not complicated is the barriers people with neurodifferences face when they join the workforce. You don't have to have dyslexia if somebody sends you a 40-page Arial 8 size triple column PDF that's locked, that you can't copy the text into something. Every senior leader I speak to tells me there is too much information, there is too much distraction, there is too much coming at me. I don't know the social norms, I don't know what's expected. I'm not sure the workplaces we have created today are it. I don't think we've reached our end point. And I think we need to ask ourselves, why can't it be a voice memo instead of an email? Why can't I present a mind map instead of a document? Why does this meeting have to be 3 hours long and I can't have more breaks? Why do I have to be on camera and sitting still all day long for you to feel I'm paying attention? So I think if we think about this not as a list of conditions or a list of labels, but actually a list of barriers, these are very human challenges. And many people with neurodifferences, they don't have their label the way we do with our gender and our race. Many of them don't have access to diagnosis. They don't know their identity. And if you're a business trying to find all of the dyslexic people, that's going to be a challenge. But if you think about how do we read, how do we write, how do we process information in 2022 and beyond, that to me is the kind of conversation we need to be having. And finally, number 3, the big one for me, this is the big one for me, I think it's a lack of leadership. Not a lack of leadership in HR, not a lack of leadership in D&I, but a lack of leadership at the very top of our businesses. And that doesn't mean we don't have neurodivergent people at the top of our businesses, we do, but when I talk to them, many of them say they're scared, they don't want to come out of the closet, Matt, as you said, and because their differences are stigmatized, they're seen as vulnerability, and believe me, it's tough up there at the top of the business world. What I would say about this is, though, we've got to engage leaders. We've got to coordinate organizations. We've got to hold those organizations accountable if we really want to make a difference. So that's 3 main things, which is I think we need to have a value conversation. We need to think about barriers, not conditions, and all of the complexity that brings. And finally, I think this is really about leadership. I think NiB has a really important role to play here, as it's a critical mass of businesses, and that can be a critical catalyst for change in our organization. As Dan said, we haven't had the forums where we get 100 businesses together to talk about how do we want to do this differently, not just for us, but for the wider business world as well. And look, what I would just say is, our vision in Lexic is a world where all minds belong. We want to imagine a world where who you are, how your brain is wired, how you think, is not a barrier to your participation, and that your differences can be seen as a good thing. And if we can be our best at work, and if we can be our true selves at work, that means we work harder, we're more loyal, we get better organizational results, and that's good for business. So thank you very much, Dan, for inviting me. And